considering we have a limited group here at the Institute in order to make sure that we don't have a big crowd for classes, but wanted to go live just so that you get a chance to see our routine one more time. So that's pretty much about it. And just again, for everybody, one of the things that we do for that pulse assessment video yesterday was we're holding the solar plexus and then our 3 fingers come up top to get that dorsal pedal pulse. And we have the 4th finger on the proximal pulse, the middle finger on the middle pulse, and the index finger on that distal pulse. So we're taking pulses as we take that first solar plexus point.
We've got almost 10 people live already.
Yep, because everybody's at home. What's interesting is we've got a really nice pulse on the left side, but the pulse on the right side is almost non-existent. So we have some discrepancy in the pulses. There's likely some sort of hip impingement on that side that's keeping the vasculature from behaving properly. Then we go to our adrenals. Notice we've got those nice strong bent thumbs at that nice 45-degree angles to make sure that we're protecting that thumb joint and that we can do 6 sessions a day, 5 days a week or so to make sure that our thumbs stay nice and strong and in alignment. Also, we talked about deepening techniques this morning. One of the things that I'll talk about next month in terms of deepening is the only way that we can safely deepen from a point work perspective is when the thumbs are static. When the thumbs are moving, that's when we tend to compromise the thumb because we apply momentum to the joint at the same time as depth, which is not okay. The deeper you go, the slower you go is a good way to kind of think about that. So we deepen over points when we are holding them, not necessarily when we are moving over them. Go through our nice hot towel routine. Take our dry towel and do the exact same thing.
Sigh.
Sigh. And we keep that left foot nice and tucked and wrapped so that we can do the whole routine on the right side. We start with our relaxation techniques. So getting some nice circulation into the feet. And these are really full body techniques, so although we're manipulating the foot, we should really make sure that the momentum is traveling up the body, and really getting the whole body to kind of wiggle and shake and dislodge any stagnation. If anybody asks questions on that, feel free to pass.
Some hellos and some waves.
Yeah.
I'll wave
Hellos and
back.
waves. There you go.
Got 35 people.
35 people. Hello, 35 people. How are you? How's everybody doing?
Laura McGee from Ireland, naturally.
Naturally. Love my Irish people. Okay. Here we're just not necessarily grinding into the heel, but grinding into the heel a little bit, just to open up the sciatic nerve and get that dense heel tissue to soften before we hit it at the end of the session. We're not actually going to hit it, we're going to walk it, but you know what I'm saying. Softening up the spinal reflexes. And we start our walk. We start just at that pelvic line, so hitting the lumbar spine first as we inter-thumb up those reflexes. Then when we get to the proximal head of that first metatarsal, we start our thoracic reflexes, and then we stop just below at about T6, below that bunion area. And that's going to be our theme for the weekend, is the skeletal system. So that's one of the things that I think is really important for us as reflexologists to know, is when we're walking, what bones, what structures we're actually walking over reflex-wise.
I got a really nice chart that's the bones and ligaments, tendons, and muscles of the feet. It has all that on there.
Yeah.
I had to, because when I was doing my recommended sessions, I had to get the verbiage in my brain.
Exactly. Yeah, it's important to know the bones of the foot, especially from a landmark perspective. Bless you.
Bless you.
And we're going through all of those toes, just opening up the head neck reflexes. We have our big toe routine, because the big toe is super special. It's so special it gets its own routine. We start by walking up those cervical reflexes. So starting at where we find the proximal phalanx of the big toe, walking to the edge of that big toe pad, which would be C7 to C2 and 1. And then moving across thyroid and all of the neck.
You're making all of the UK envious right now because they can't do reflexology.
Yes. Massage is still happening in the US right now, until we get any particular type of ordinance or order. We are still practicing safely, but practicing cautiously as well. Ooh, there's some congestion there. Fun. So we're just gonna hold. No, we're not gonna hold. We're gonna keep walking. We're gonna keep walking. Okay. Just a little bit of grossness in there. Just flush that out. And then we go over the top and move on to that lateral surface of the big toe with the fingers moving down. And follow that with our dorsal surface. Get a nice gloss on the dorsal surface and begin to pump down all those lymphatic reflexes. Which is also very important for the immune system, just flushing all of that. And then we move into our metatarsal shake. Just opening up the skeletal system. One thing that a lot of people forget about the lymph is that the skeletal system and the joints specifically are the gateways of lymph. So when the bones are compromised or out of alignment, that's when the lymphatic system starts to back up and clog. And so if we make sure that the bones are aligned and that we keep our physical activity correct, that's when we find that the lymphatic system starts to move. We have a point here that we're just going to hold.
You want an eye pillow?
Okay, and the point's starting to fill up. That point specifically felt like an indentation, and so we press that indentation and we wait for the opposite effect. We wait for the point to feel like it's filling up or the tissue is rebounding against our pressure. Walking through the dorsal valleys. There's a little bit of tension through here, so just walking an extra pass where we find that tension. Again, as we get towards that lower body, just all that stuff. And then back to our metatarsal shake. And back to the plantar side, where we start to walk the ball of the foot. All those respiratory reflexes, heart stuff. Oh, there's a nice point right here, so we're just gonna hold on to that. It feels like a mix between a tight band and hollow space. So it's like there's a lack of tissue, but then there's one specific band of tissue that's really, really prominent. So we're just trying to balance the tension in that spot. Trying to get the places that are too weak to tighten and the places that are too tight to loosen. There's some stuff in there too. So we're just gonna do a nice little toe pop. That's kind of what we wanted. Two, three. There's a little bit of congestion in through here, so we're just going to roll around the shoulder a little bit. that shoulder reflex in horizontal zone 2, vertical zone 5, right underneath that 5th digit. Is a crunchy joint in general. You'll find a lot of congestion around there, but every once in a while it's nice to just give it a nice pump, getting in between those bones and allowing the tissue to open and relax. And then the distal metatarsal head shake before we move into the digestive reflexes. We start just below the diaphragm guideline, and we're going to walk to the plantar tendon and then reset. Because we don't want to walk horizontally over that plantar tendon. That doesn't feel nice, doesn't feel comfortable. It also gives our other thumb a break while we use the outside hand to do the first part of the digestive reflexes. One of the reasons why I teach the routine like this is because you're constantly alternating which thumb is working and which thumb is resting, which lets you take a break in between places that you walk. Then go vertical, going in between the waistline guideline and the diaphragm guideline, clearing all of the upper digestive reflexes. In this case, we're on the right side, so that's going to be liver, gallbladder, tail end of pancreas, upper kidney, and adrenal. And we start just below the waistline guideline, 3 times. 2, 3. Just to that plantar tendon. Switch hands and go vertical. Go back to the toes. Back to those neck reflexes, checking to see if everything's nice and open. One of the things that I think is an important part is that the hand that's not working should always be in full contact with the foot. It really makes the client feel like you're supporting and that you're not just kind of, dead hand. And then over the top. And then we'll start working on our lower body reflexes. Getting a nice gloss to the heel. Doesn't that look lovely? Ending with that outside hand coming in and then walking the medial side of that calcaneus. Switching hands, going to the outside, walking that lateral surface 3 times. You can see that I'm kind of picking up the heel for leverage just a little bit so that my fingers can go underneath there. And then using that outside hand to rotate the ankle as we walk around the lateral malleolus. Gross. There's a hip point. What's really nice about this particular reflex area is that you can hold that point, but then use the other hand to kind of direct where the pressure is on that reflex. And you can really make sure that you're at that exact spot where the body wants you to be. Just rolling on it. And then we move on. Going over the top. The dorsal ankle pump. All those pelvic, reproductive, inguinal lymph reflexes. And we're going to do the cuboid notch on the lateral surface. Which is that lateral triangular section that we're just going to trace up, down, and then around the base 3 times. Ending with the plantar surface of the calcaneus. Switching hands and going vertically. And that is it for the routine. Finish with the relaxation techniques. And then we'll wrap this foot up and repeat on the other side. set. Do you want to grab that seat, or did you want to stand?
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Start our spinal reflexes. Looking, ooh. Just some tension in through here. Nothing crazy. Just a little bit. And the toes. And a little bit of stuff in here. So I'm just going to walk that over a couple times. Okay. I just felt a little swollen. To those head and neck reflexes. Making sure to support the toe as you walk underneath. On the pad of the toe. to the dorsal surface. Our metatarsal head, or our metatarsal shake, going all the way down the bones, really making sure to get separation and movement. Flexibility in the foot is very, very important. Then we push the foot back slightly and go down each of the valleys once. Unless we find a point, and then we stay on that point. And onto the plantar surface, where we walk the ball of the foot. Just some shoulder stuff rotating around that point, getting the tissue to get nice and warm and flexible. And then shake it out. Onto the digestive. Some congestion around that knee point. Just walking that a couple extra times. And then back to the plantar surface of the digestive. And there's a point right over the pancreas, so we're going to hold that. It's really important as you walk the digestive reflexes that you know exactly where you're walking, making sure that you're starting at the pelvic line and not moving past that waistline guideline so that you know you're on lower digestive versus upper digestive from an assessment perspective. And back to the toes. And to our final section, everything in the lower body. This time you'll get a look at the lateral side instead of the medial side. We start with our nice Achilles tendon effleurage. Ending with that outside hand coming in and slightly lifting the heel so that we can walk the medial side of the calcaneus. using our thenar as leverage to do that. And then switching hands and doing the exact same thing on the lateral side, getting those fingers underneath and walking from that Achilles tendon attachment to just before the cuboid notch, getting all of that lateral calcaneal glute ovary testy reflex tissue underneath our fingertips. Then, behind that lateral malleolus, we start our first points. We rotate the foot around those points. Ew, gross. Second round of hip not so niceness. And then around the top for the dorsal ankle. Get the cuboid notch, starting with that proximal head of the fifth metatarsal, walking up the triangle, finding that edge of the cuboid bone, then walking down the triangle, feeling that edge of the calcaneus, and then walking across the bottom of that triangle. And doing that 3 times. Last area is the plantar surface of the calcaneus. Getting a little bit of lift on the heel and using the outside hand to just walk across horizontally, clearing and getting some extra circulation into that space. And then switch hands and walking vertically. That is it. Finishing up the relaxation techniques, we'll do hot towels and then our last 2 points. finish with our solar plexus and our adrenals, getting that pulse back underneath our fingertips as well. Is it. Another successful round of our routine.